Hey, it's time to bust out those shaggin' shoes. Over the next several weeks, we're going to take an in-depth look at beach music and shagging here in the Carolinas. We'll learn about some of the bands, people, and places that made their mark on this special genre of music. Tonight, Carolina Impact's Jason Terzes introduces us to beach music and how it all started.
If you really love beach music, you live it, you breathe it, you feel it. Beach music is an endless progression of love for the culture, the people, and the music. You sometimes can't totally describe it, but when you hear it and you see it, you know it.
Not many regions can claim their own genre of music, and not many can claim their own official state dance to go along with it. But beach music and the Carolina Shag have gone hand in hand for decades.
Beach music, if you want to go back in time, it originated along the Carolina coastline. Kids going all the way back into the 40s used to go down to Ocean Drive, North Myrtle Beach, or OD.
Beach music got its start from predominantly African-American musicians. Jazz, the doo-wop, rhythm and blues, and later, the sounds of Motown. Acts like Earl Bostic. And Billy Ward and his Dominoes. 60-minute men. The music started popping up along the Carolina coast, especially in vacation hotspots like Myrtle Beach.
A lot of people from North Carolina would come down to this area to vacation. Lots of kids down here at that time.
On the jukeboxes were selections of music that you didn't hear on the radio necessarily. Back then it was called race music.
At the time, most white parents didn't want their kids listening to race music, or forbidden music, as many called it.
The white kids, they couldn't hear the black music at home.
But like some teenagers tend to do, they went against their parents' wishes, seeking the music out. One place they were sure to find it was on jukeboxes at the bars and pavilions along the beach.
I used to go to Moorhead in Atlantic Beach. Atlantic Beach was the happening spot, and it was the music they were playing down there.
Over time, the music gained popularity among blacks and whites and started getting radio airplay.
And then it spread north, it spread south, it went all the way up towards Carolina Beach, Wrightsville Beach, Myrtle Beach, and then all the way down as far as Savannah.
Soon, the forbidden music went mainstream, becoming known as R&B, with bands like the Drifters,
Under the Boardwalk,
the Temptations, and Lancaster native Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs.
So you had the Temptations, the Four Tops, you had Smokey Robinson, the Miracles, you had Stevie Wonder.
These songs and artists were instrumental in bringing a wider acceptance of R&B music among all races nationwide, and a contributing factor in the birth of rock and roll. But that's another story. Before R&B made its mark on the American music scene, big bands were all the rage. And with it came hugely popular dances like the jitterbug and swing. As R&B started taking off, the swing and jitterbug were slowed down just a bit to fit the music's tempo, and a new dance was born.
It wasn't called beach music. It was music that you shag danced to, or as they said in eastern North Carolina, the bop, the Carolina bop.
I mean, the shag is it's just unbelievable.
All of a sudden it was cool to do the shag.
I could not get enough of it.
If you could shag, the girls loved you.
And then you got shag clubs everywhere.
But if you were a guy who, maybe didn't have the most glamorous looks in the world, but if you could shag, every lady in that place would dance with you.
I'm from the 60s, so when I started shagging, shag was a lot different. They had concrete floors and a jukebox. You didn't have shag shoes. You danced on concrete, so your shoes wore out eventually. You had holes in them, so you put cardboard and duct tape over them.
Seeing how popular the music and the shag were becoming, white musicians started forming bands to take advantage.
There were bands that were out that went, hey, this music, let's take a listen to this, learn this, and then you had the beach bands that evolved from all that.
Around the 1960s, I think you saw the formation of a lot of the bands that we know are beach bands now. Ambers, Shakers, Chairman of the Board.
But throughout the 60s, it still wasn't known as beach music. That term didn't catch on until the early 70s.
And it was about that time that certain radio stations, DJs, started throwing out beach music because all of this was played at the Carolina coastline.
While many beach music aficionados say the music and the shag hit peak popularity in the 1980s, it remains predominantly a regional thing. But there are still plenty of shaggers, bands, and new music to go around.
The countdown rolls on with We Are Beach music from a variety of artists.
The artists, the bands, they're back in the studio. They're giving us good music.
People have a real love for good, solid beach music with that good shag beat.
Beach music. It started as a Carolina thing, and to this day remains a Carolina thing. How else then could you explain the shag being the official state dance of both North and South Carolina?
Jason joins me on set now to tell us a little bit more of what's to come with this series. The first part, I just say fun.
It really is, and this whole process has been an educational experience for myself. So when you guys first presented this to me and said, you know, we want to do a series of stories on beach music and the shag, my first thought was, what is the shag? And so for me, you know, growing up in New England and living in different states and only been in the Carolinas for a few years, I had, you know, a lot of research and investigation and trying to find out, you know, what is beach music? So that was the first question that really kind of came out in this first story is, how did beach music begin? Where does its roots lie? And where did the shag come from? And how did these two go hand in hand? And how the shag evolved from the jitterbug and from swing dance, and how beach music itself evolved from R&B, and how it started along the coastline and has really kind of become this Carolina sensation over the decades.
I think it's a lot of nostalgia too for folks who, even though they may have done shagging at the beach growing up as family vacations, now, though, even as people get in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they still love to shag?
They still love to shag. And it's interesting to see because they talk about it being a community, or in some cases, some people refer to it as a family. And it really is. It's a family. So as we're going to see in subsequent weeks here, you know, a lot of the older generation, the people who are in their 60s and 70s, they're handing it down to their kids and their grandkids. And so, you know, they have junior shaggers. And so there's kids out there, you know, 10, 12, 14 years old, learning how to shag and going to competitions. And it really is a thing where it's a family atmosphere and they're handing it down generation to generation.
You're even going to take us to the mecca of shagging?
Well, coming up, we're gonna explore. This first piece was more about beach music evolution and how it evolved and how the shag evolved. And now coming up next week, you know, kind of like what country music is for Nashville, or Nashville is to country music, North Myrtle Beach is for beach music and the shag, and that's really where it all began. And there's this epicenter, there's all the clubs are there, there's walks of fame, there's halls of fame, and it's all right there in North Myrtle Beach. And that's going to be the focus on next week's story. And then we're going to kind of work our way over here to Charlotte with Lynn's Dance Club. We're going to get into some of the bands like the Catalinas and chairman of the board, bands that have ties directly to Charlotte, and just how this whole region is really, you know, in awe and loves beach music and loves the shag.
Well, I am looking forward to hearing more about it, Jason Terzes. We appreciate your report and look forward to seeing more on your special Summer Sand and Shag.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.